me, are there any specific tasting notes you're looking for?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Sam Field. I'm head of partnerships here at Rock Paper Reality. And as you can see, we're quite obsessed with helping our brands to embrace emerging technology like XR and AI in their brand storytelling. And I think it's incredible at the moment that we've got such a invigorated XR community. Even just looking at the mixed reality space right now, we've had, these aren't the only devices on the market, but we're seeing such big announcements every few months right now. Whether it's the big upgrades to mixed reality and pass-through from the Meta Quest 3, the long-awaited launch of the Apple Vision Pro, and even just outside this hall, we've got Snap showcasing their new Spectacles 5. And then along came this guy this year with his new Orion AR glasses. And really, despite some of these, price points are still quite high. We've got some that are still very much in the sort of developmental stage. But what is unequivocally clear, at least to me, is that now more than ever is a time where we need to be investing in 3D digital content to populate the world around us. And funnily enough, another announcement this year, in amongst a sea of AI announcements, particularly at Google I/O, Google announced something really, really big. It's certainly something I think is huge, and I actually think it could potentially be the biggest announcement in AR to date. And it was this. If you zoom out a bit, location-based content is having a bit of a moment right now. And if you think about how our relationship with city centres and retail and tourism has significantly changed since 2020. And digital content has followed the same pattern. Now, retail and tourism has a huge focus on experiential rather than just purely transactional. And our digital location-based content has become even more experiential too. If you think about the rise of digital out-of-home supported by anamorphic 3D billboards, the rise of location-based AR, we've even seen virtual concerts simultaneously hosted in Times Square and Piccadilly Circus. We've even seen a rise of a new branded content video format that, makes us question what's real and what's faux. And if you start to kind of break down some of these location-based digital content, I think it's really important that we identify these and look at the strengths and weaknesses of each and how they each play a different role in our marketing plan. On the one end of the spectrum, you've got augmented reality, so AR, location-based AR, highly interactive, immersive. This is an experience, not just a piece of content. You've got something that's slightly more immersive form of digital out-of-home in anamorphic billboards. And you've got something with bigger scale and still visually stunning in digital out-of-home. I really like this example from do.com, where they're using an element of augmentation there by making it slightly translucent so you can see the buildings behind. And then you've got the rise of guerrilla marketing, faux out-of-home content, which essentially is branded content as we've always known it. I mean, this is content that studios like ours used to create for case study videos. It's really interesting now seeing it as it's the central piece of content. And for me, I think the point is that these shouldn't be treated in isolation and a choice of one or the other, but they should complement one another and be used to identify and reach audiences in new and interesting ways. But today I'm focused on location-based AR. There are many words we can call it: world-anchored AR, geospatial AR. I think as an industry, we have a bit of a problem with using technology words to talk to marketing people, and I think we could probably simplify our language, but we're going to go with location-based AR. I did a poll on LinkedIn recently, and that was the most requested definition. And as a definition, an interactive digital experience that overlays virtual content onto the physical world. And I think I want to just re-emphasize the word experience there, because augmented reality imprints on your brain as something that you did. And things that you do, so experiences, are things you're more likely to remember, you're more likely to talk about them, you're more likely to share them, rather than a piece of content that you passively consume. And our experience in location-based AR has been long and deep. Last year, we helped Adobe Aero launch their partnership with Google Geospatial, where we brought to life their new suite of brand assets cascading down the front of the LA Convention Center so that when visitors were arriving, they could see the new branding, but they could also access exclusive content and the day's schedule. We took over Boston with 70-foot-high augmented reality diving boards to promote their cliff diving competition, all launched from digital out-of-home placements and billboards and posters around the city. We entertained queues of Formula One fans during race weekend in Las Vegas along the Strip as part of a T-Mobile campaign to drive customers and F1 fans into their store for a 5G F1 experience. And we took over Japantown in San Francisco, where we brought to life a small origami store called Papertree. And we took their origami, 3D scanned it, brought it to life, and showcased it all along the street, driving new, different demographics into their store. And then finally, we created the world's largest festive scavenger hunt, where we took over the whole of Times Square for a festive scavenger hunt, where people could collect these ornaments, place them on this festive tree, and win tech prizes. We had 93,000 competition entries from that experience alone. And what all these things have in common from a kind of location-based AR perspective, number one, they have geospatial awareness, meaning that the experience could recognize the world around and place content into that real world one-to-one. Example being this really nice Miss Dior experience where they took over Macy's in New York City. It's an experience, therefore it's interactive and immersive. It's something you actively participate in. You're actively choosing to engage with this format. And it's mobile first, often launched from a QR code, from digital out of home, from a storefront, from a location, people on the ground handing out cards of QR codes, or from a web link. And that is potentially one of the friction points with this type of technology is accessibility, discoverability, and scale. Three of the big players in this space, not the only players, Niantic. When you think about the quality of these experiences, often it's down to the quality of your 3D mesh of the world that's going to dictate the quality of your location-based AR experience. And these three companies take quite different approaches to capturing that data. Niantic take a lot of data from Pokemon Go users or Ingress, and people playing those games, choosing those locations. They also have their Scaniverse app. You've probably seen it just over the way, where people and developers and creators are uploading 3D scans of the world, and that's then available for other people to use in Niantic Studio. And they've got their VPS solution for you to be able to deploy these experiences. A really solid solution, great for kind of 50 by 50 foot spaces. Snap have their landmarker technology. They've got about 26 landmarks scanned that you can use. They say you can't use them for commercial, but you can seek the permission of the landowner and do that. And you can also create custom locations yourself as a developer. It requires a bit of scanning and so on. And Google have Google Maps. Right? And for the last 15 years, Google have been scanning over 100 countries, over 2,000 cities, over 263 million 3D buildings. And last year, through Geospatial Creator, they gave developers access to that 3D mesh of the world to deploy web experiences with Adobe Aero or app-based experiences built with Unity. And it uses the visual positioning system so you can then overlay and integrate 3D digital AR content into the real world with occlusion, so you can place things in front of or behind or partially behind or wrapping around buildings and architecture. And they also launched photorealistic 3D tiles, which you see on the right-hand side, so that you can actually use this content yourself. And you saw a lot of the Paris Olympics broadcast coverage using 3D tiles as they transitioned from one stadium to the broadcast home or back to another part where the next event was happening. And they're using Google's photorealistic 3D tiles for broadcast, which leads to the brief that we worked on. And the brief was to launch an AR pilot into Google Maps during Paris 2024. And this was a brief in collaboration with Google Arts and Culture, Google AR VR, and Google Maps. So 3 big parts of a really big company. And this was the first time they were going to deploy AR content into the Google Maps platform. This is a platform that has over 1 billion users a month. So huge opportunity, and something this is the reason I think it's such a significant step in the space of AR and location-based AR. And it's a really interesting brief because back in 1900, the last time Paris hosted the Olympics, they hosted the Olympics and they hosted the Exposition Universelle, which is the World Trade Fair. And during the World Trade Fair, lots of the most famous architects of the time, people like Stephen Sylvestre, who was one of the architects of the Eiffel Tower, they created and designed these amazing, intricate, huge country pavilions for all of the competing nations. And they ran down the banks of the River Seine and all along the Champs-Élysées. They even had a competition among these architects to reimagine and redevelop the Eiffel Tower. And one of the winning entries on the right-hand side there, actually from Stephen Sylvestre, who was one of the architects of the Eiffel Tower. And the plan was to redevelop the Eiffel Tower for this event for a short period of time. This part of it never happened, but the drawings remained. So our team worked with historians and world trade experts, and we pored over black and white photos and poster designs and illustrations of these country pavilions that ran down the banks of the Seine. And we recreated 16 of them along the bank of the Seine. And it was, pretty unbelievable detail, considering there was such a lack of high-quality visuals that we could use. And luckily, we fell across an expert called Laurent Demont, who was an expert in world trade fairs and the architecture that surrounds it. And he became a really great sounding board for our 3D team. And we started off creating these really high-poly 3D models. This was the Colossal Hotel, one of the plans to potentially redevelop the Eiffel Tower, wrapped around the Eiffel Tower itself. And then we worked with Adobe Substance Painter to start building in lots of the textural detail, to work in things like reflective materials and an understanding of how light and shadows would play within these experiences. And each of the projects had to be optimized to under 20 megabytes per project. So for one project, it would be the Eiffel Tower, the 2 models that wrap around the Eiffel Tower, the UX, the UI, the animation, the audio, and that would all have to be less than 20 megabytes. So to put that into perspective, that's potentially one very high resolution image. In fact, this presentation alone is over 2,000 megabytes just in this presentation. And they had to be highly performant because we couldn't expect consumers to go and download a 900 gigabyte building to view on their phone when they're in location. So we had to optimize these down individually to about 1.5 megabytes each. So all of those 16 buildings had to be less than 20 megabytes in total. And I don't know how good the Wi-Fi is in here or whether you've got 5G, but if you want to just try it yourself, feel free to scan one of the 2 QR codes here. And you should be able to see in Street View one of the 2 experiences. Yeah? Is it working? Brilliant. And that's what I think is one of the things that's really interesting about this, because if you're on location within 200 meters of the location, whether it's the Eiffel Tower or Pont des Invalides, which is one of the bridges that we did the project on, you will get the lens in maps. It used to be called live view, now it's called lens in maps, and it'll automatically recognize the world around you, and it'll populate with surprisingly good accuracy and stability. And if you're outside of 200 meters, you get a street view version of it. So all of a sudden, from something that used to struggle with discoverability, friction points of discoverability and shareability and scale, suddenly the big unlock for me is that you have these opportunities to create these immersive storytelling that could be mapped to the real world around you. It's discoverable both on location, if you're in Google Maps in a location and you happen to be, I'm sure all of us who have been visiting Vienna this week have been in Google Maps a lot, trying to find our way around. And just underneath, you'll see it just on the second image there, you'll see there's just there, underneath the first one, you can tap on that and open the experience and it will localize. And it also means it's shareable. It could be shareable as a QR code, as a web link, from an ad format, and it's future-proof. So right now, the pilot is happening in Paris. It's just been extended to the end of Q1. They're looking for more partners to be part of this program and to test this experience out. And they've also got it in Singapore. The plan is to roll this out to 10 cities in the next 12 to 18 months. They haven't announced what all of those cities are, but imagine the 10 biggest cities you can think of, and they'll all be likely to be prioritized. And it means that my recommendation is that testing this content and experience now, if you have a point of interest or a location that's a really important channel for you, a retail store, a sports stadium, a museum, anything along those lines, testing this content now in what's available on the market will put you in really good stead for when this lands in your city and in your location. And right now, what you can do today is, number one, you can use the 2D branded maps API for Google, which allows you to create customized and branded experiences using all of the Google Maps built-in experiences like directions and points of interest and street view, etc. You're able to then use realistic 3D tiles to integrate 3D content into 3D scenes accessible for desktop and for mobile. And you're able to then extend that for people who are on location with an augmented reality experience driven by web, or if you've got an application, you can build something in Unity, deploy it within your app. And if you're going to be moving into that space and testing that out, the tips I would recommend, number one, consider the audience. Who are your audience? What do you want them to do? Are you driving footfall into your store? Are you trying to engage them in new and interesting ways? What is the use case? What is the benefit to that user? Why would they go and experience that? What is going to unlock for them once they go and spend time with your brand in this new and immersive way? Think about the location that you are bringing to life. How do you add value to that location? What is its existing function, and how would that function be enhanced through an immersive storytelling experience? And when you think about the user, what is going to be the safest and most engaging way to consume this content? So on the right-hand side there was the project we did with T-Mobile in Las Vegas. And it was a very narrow sidewalk, so we really had to use the full scale of the building to bring that content out and bring it down to them on their level, so we avoid them, walking out into the road and causing an accident. And finally, make it shareable. If you want to build in VFX and CGI to enhance the storytelling and make it more polished for your social shareable asset, that's fine. We didn't for the Google project because it didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. We wanted it to be exactly what the experience would be, but there is absolute value in doing that, and there is great success in doing so. Because the use cases are pretty much endless, really. Number one, you might want to use digital out of home or digital architecture around the city to drive footfall and use that built-in wayfaring solution that already exists within Google Maps. Dior did it really well, driving people from digital out of home to Macy's and then all the way up to the counter inside where they could then redeem discounts. You can create urgency with limited time drops or short-term offers that are only accessible via your immersive experience. Or you can extend your footprint. Think about your festive window displays that sprawl down the street, or enhanced against specific moments within a calendar, whether it's Pride or Halloween or festive experiences. And finally, make sure that you're rewarding your customers and your users, because if they're spending time with your brand, they're actively choosing to engage with this experience. It's not a passive media format, it's an active, engaged format, and therefore think about how you're going to reward them, whether it's through gamification, whether it's through prizes, scavenger hunts, discounts within store, or just go big work with talent, work with partners, work with creators to bring it to life. I mean, this is a huge Gorillas virtual concert that happened with the Google Geospatial application simultaneously in Times Square and Piccadilly Circus. So, I guess the last thing to say, don't miss perhaps the biggest thing to ever happen in augmented reality. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sam.